Hey everybody, my name is Teresa Palavoda. I'm sorry, usually I do videos from home, but today I decided to do it from my office, so it's a little, you're stacked on books right now, the camera is, so if it's a little wonky, I apologize. I wanted to welcome you to Aml2600 in person, well, as in person as we get, since this is an online class. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I graduated from Florida State with my master's and went back twice to try to get my PhD, but was unable to finish. The first time my husband was ill, and so I didn't finish. And then the second time, after I went back after a few years, and just some stuff happened where basically the English department at FSU didn't. Well, I overheard someone say that I wasn't their kind. So needless to say, I didn't make it that far. I finished all my coursework, but when it came time to actually writing dissertation, I wasn't able to do that. However, I've taken lots and lots of courses in minority literature. So that includes women's literature, African American literature, Hispanic literature, Native American literature, and so for those of you who are wondering why I'm teaching this class, that's why. It's because minority literature is my wheelhouse, as they say. So I think that I can't tell you anything about African American culture because I'm not African American, obviously, but those of you who are African American can share sort of cultural insights in the literature that we study, and please feel free to share that in the discussions. I think that that will enrich our discussions, and what I will be focusing on is the literature and the historical aspects of what was going on at the time when certain African American authors wrote what they wrote. So that's what I'm here to help you with, and I think that you'll enjoy the class. This is a class that I love to teach. I love to introduce the literature to various people, and so that's what I'm planning to do this semester for you. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about something called the cult of true womanhood, and I'm going to post on Canvas an article about the cult of true womanhood, which will explain what that's about. But basically, in a nutshell, it's when society decided in the 1700s or late 1700s, early 1800s, that to be a, quote, true woman, like a real woman, you had to have 4 traits. And these 4 traits were, one was purity, and that means that you were pure of mind and body. And so that meant that you kept your body pure until marriage, but then your mind could also not be tainted with any sort of heavy knowledge. And so that runs into that idea that don't worry your pretty little head over this, you know, that certain things were too much for women to bear. And so, and it had to do with Victorians believing that the brain and the uterus were connected, and that if women got too smart, that she would be unable to carry children. And that's the whole idea behind, you know, what women are for at that time. So that's what that's about. The second thing that you had, the second trait was that you had to be pious. And that means that you had to believe in God and be the conduit in your house to God. So you made sure that everybody said grace before dinner, and you made sure that everybody read their Bible and that kind of stuff. So you were pious. So purity and piousness. And then the third thing was that you were submissive. You were submissive to the man in your family. So that meant that you went from your father's household, where you believed what your father said and you did what he told you to do, until you married. And then at that time you went and lived with your husband, and you believed everything that, you know, you did what your husband wanted you to do. And then if heaven forbid your husband died, and before you remarried, you would maybe live in your brother's house if your father was no longer available. And so it was really about the submissiveness towards men. And then the fourth thing was domestic. You had to be domestic. That meant that you didn't want to go out and work and that kind of stuff, but instead you just did all of the domestic things. So that was cooking and cleaning, or if you were wealthy, you would you would tell the chef what to make. You would tell the maid how to clean the house, those kind of things. So those those four things, those four traits, being domestic, submissive, pious, and pure, are what women were supposed to try to achieve. Now, that was only really true for rich women. Average women, regular women, just women, most women had to work, most women were doing things to survive, and so they didn't really have the pleasure and to be able to do just those things. And so that really also went for enslaved people. So enslaved people were also held to that standard. So enslaved women were held to this standard of, well, you're not a real woman kind of thing. And so I have on Canvas put some information about Harriet Jacobs and Sojourner Truth, two enslaved people, and we're going to study them. Most people have heard about Sojourner Truth, but not everyone has heard about Harriet Jacobs. And so this is not Harriet Tubman, this is Harriet Jacobs. Harriet Jacobs escaped from the man who owned her and who assaulted her by living in her grandmother's attic for 7 years. And so I think her story is a really interesting one. It's one that everybody needs to know. And so that's why we're going to study Harriet Jacobs. So if you look on your Canvas, you'll see information on Sojourner Truth, on the Cult of True Womanhood, also known as the Cult of Domesticity, and you will see information on Harriet Jacobs. What I would like for you to do is read or watch that information. Some of it's video, some of it's like an article. I would like for you to read that, and then I'd like for you to answer the discussion questions. And then, of course, as always, please comment on one other person's information. So I hope you enjoy this information on Harriet Jacobs, Sojourner Truth, and the Cult of True Womanhood. And I'll see you next week. Don't forget, if you have any questions, you can email me, you can text me, you can call me. And have a good week. Bye.